All right, I do think we're live. Oh, wrong screen. Hey friends, welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour, our first brew day live of 2025. Happy New Year. Hope you had a wonderful, safe New Year's Eve. So as you can see from the title, we are doing a very quick batch of kombucha. I know it is, people go to the store and they get kombucha and they spend stupid amounts of money on it. And I always wonder, back in the day when I would do that and spend stupid amounts of money, why am I spending stupid amounts of money? I should brew it. And it turns out kombucha is the easiest beverage I've ever brewed, second to sparkling water. And with it being a new year and a lot of you guys are doing dry January, I haven't committed to dry January yet. I'm considering it. I haven't had anything to drink yet, so I'm on a good streak. It is noon. I was told by many people, you should do the brew day earlier or later because apparently there's college football on right now. Who cares about college football? No, the vast majority of people are going to watch this after the fact. But anyway, we are doing kombucha because, yeah, it's a great, supposedly good for your gut. And like I said, it's so simple and easy to use. The full context of this brew day is I'm making a 1 gallon batch, which is very common for home brewers, because I'm going to use that 1 gallon batch to be a starter for a 5 gallon batch when this is done fermenting. And I'll go into those details. If you look in the show notes below, you'll see a link to all the equipment we're using. Actually, I don't know if I put a link to the pot. I'm using Homebrewer Labs, which is our buddy Trong. I'm using his pot to brew, which is totally overkill if you're just doing kombucha. This is a 2 gallon vessel. Anything that can hold at least a gallon, and you don't even need that big of a stock pot, you can do this in. I'm in my garage today because my wife didn't want me cooking in the kitchen, or she didn't want me live streaming in the kitchen. So I'm using an induction top from Amazon. That was pretty cheap. Using the pot to brew, and then yeah, have full coffee here, and we are good to go. If you go to the article at homebrewhappyhour.com, again, which is in the description below, all the links in that, you'll have the full step-by-step, and I'm just walking through it. It will be very quick. I did skip the step for this brew day live. I already boiled the water. I'm currently steeping it, and for the sake of TV magic, I'm literally steeping it. What I usually would do is just throw it in like that and let them sit. I just turned off the boil. I have 2 minutes of my 7 minutes for it to steep. So to make this 1 gallon, I took 4 cups of water, put it in my pot of brew, and brought it to a boil. Then when it got to the boil, immediately cut it off and threw in 7 tea bags. The instructions say 6 to 8. So I took the middle. 7 tea bags in there. Once this is done steeping, it says in here for 5 to 7 minutes, so I'm doing 6 minutes. Anytime instructions give me a range and there's one in the middle, I'm just gonna take the middle. So doing the one, allowing the tea to steep for 5 to 7 minutes, I'm doing 6. We'll pour a cup of sugar in there. Once I can get that dissolved, that's it. It's that easy of making just sweet tea, the amount that we're doing here. And then from there, we're going to fill it into our glass jar. We'll bring it to pitching temperature. We'll throw in our SCOBY. We'll let it ferment. We'll check on it in 7 days. It really is that simple. I'll go through what we're using. Like I said, the pot here is from Trong's homebrewerlab.com. If you're gonna be brewing a lot more stuff, Will, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us. If you're gonna be brewing beer, if you're gonna be doing kombucha, you wanna make kimchi, all that, Trong's Pot to Brew is the absolute, I think it's probably gonna be the best piece of gear for 2025. He technically released it in 2024, but his real big marketing push is gonna be this year. So I'm excited to see what Trong does with this. So yeah, I'm using that for my pot. Any stock pot will work. A stovetop, as most of you will use in your home. Again, not all of you have wives that kick you out to the garage. If you can cook in your kitchen, kombucha is even simpler. So we've got, let me go through the equipment. Yes, we got the pot, a glass jar. I have a link in the description. These are dirt cheap on Amazon. A lot of you already have these. I think I stole this from my mom because it says sun tea on it. I don't make sun tea, so I think she did it. Who else is in the chat there? Perfect timing, the video enjoying the Pozzoli. Yeah, I had to get rid of the cheers, brother. Thanks for joining us. I use very affordable Lipton tea. I buy it in bulk. It's good. I don't know. I'm not a tea snob. I imagine like every beverage though, like you get beer people. I might be one of them. I don't drink Budweiser, and people, everyone you talk to, they're like, I can't stand Budweiser. Somebody's drinking Budweiser because they sell gazillions of gallons. They're like the Nickelback of beer, where I don't personally like Nickelback. Somebody's listening to them. They were huge. I'm sure they're still filthy rich. All right, we got a little less than a minute. You can let it steep for longer, the tea, if you want. It's not gonna hurt anything while I ramble on. So yeah, I got the tea bags, a cup of sugar for this 1 gallon batch of kombucha. The one thing about kombucha that's different from like a beer or something you're fermenting, it is open air. It's clean. I don't sanitize like I would for fermentation vessels for beer or other alcoholic things, but it's cleaned and rinsed, so that's all I care about. And then it is open air fermentation technically, so you just use a cheesecloth when it is done and ready to ferment, put that over, secure it with like a rubber band, and boom, you're good to go. Then, you don't have to have this. I put the adhesive thermometer on here so I know when I can actually pitch. The range that you can pitch your SCOBY is going to be anywhere from 68 to 86. The warmer it is, the more fermentation, the more vigorous it's going to go. The colder your water is at the end and the colder your fermentation environment is, the slower fermentation will go. I want to turn this thing around. You can technically turn around a batch in 7 days. It'll be a little bit on the sweeter side, but you technically can. So that's what I'm going to shoot for with this, because I want to get my bigger batch going. Nick, what's up, man? Happy brew year. I hope last year, or was it 2 years ago, was the last time we did a New Year's Day brew day, and it was a Kolsch, and it was with Todd over Zoom. So I think it was 2 years ago, but I wanted to do it. I was up early. We stayed up till midnight, didn't get home till like 1. I didn't party hard last night. I had a few breakfast outs, smoked a Padron. Life is good. Celebrated with my family. I really enjoyed it. Anyways, the tea bags right now are done steeping. So what I'm gonna do is, I'll probably be smart since my mom might be watching. I want her sticking my mangled hands into this tea mix. I'm gonna get the bags out so that way I can then start dissolving my sugar. Again, that's 4 cups of water in there. Let me dump this. All right. Put my 1 cup of sugar into my tea, which we are now just making sweet tea. The sugar is important to this process because your SCOBY, which is just yeast, is going to need it to chew through it, which will turn this into kombucha. Now, there are people who would, before pitching and all that, take a gravity reading of their tea so that they can get an exact ABV of what their kombucha turns out. I'm not trying to make hard kombucha. I'm fine with guesstimating that it's going to end up at 0.1% ABV or 1% or less ABV. If you were to say try selling this, if you're a coffee shop or someone who, I don't think cottage laws in Texas would allow me to legally sell this. Emphasis on legal. Oh, why is that camera all going? Look, it's all, oh, I thought it looked like slow motion there for a bit. What do we? No. Okay. Anyways, I have ADD, I think. It shouldn't take long for this to dissolve. But what I was saying was, if you were able to legally sell this, if cottage laws in your state or whatever allowed you to make kombucha and go to the fair, I think you technically have to prove the ABV. So you could use, it's simple like if you're brewing beer, you could use a floating hydrometer. I could pour some in this tube here. I have to get the full volume of it. So the water I'm about to add when we get it to the jar, I need all that. So whatever the final diluted version of this batch is going to be is then when I would take the reading. So that after fermentation, when I did a reading, I'd have the exact accurate final gravity and, be surprised, oh, it's 1%, which I don't know the legal limits if you were able to sell this, what it has to be under. Is it at 3%, 1%? I have no idea. I'm not making this for booze. That's just a byproduct of yeast eating sugar. Science, some might say. So I'm pretty confident it didn't take that long at all. I think my sugar is fully dissolved. I wonder what the temperature still is on this thing. You know, it is a cool, beautiful, sunny day here in Central Texas, but I do wonder how long it'll take for me to get it down to at least 86 before I can pitch my SCOBY. I've talked about this on the podcast before, and I'll show y'all as we just let that sit and dissolve. You could go to the store and overpay for one of those 16-ounce cans, and it would be cheaper than this. I went ahead and bought the one from Fermentaholics on Amazon. The link is in the description below. The reason is because I've used these before, and they're pretty foolproof. I haven't never had a SCOBY fail from Fermentaholics. They're not terribly expensive. I mean, all this stuff is expensive in the bigger picture, but I think it was 14 bucks prime, might have been $14.95. I'll round up. 15 bucks prime shipping, got it the next day. And what I like about it, if I take care of this SCOBY, this is the only time I have to buy this. I'm gonna pitch this, I'm gonna make this 1 gallon batch. That 1 gallon batch is gonna be used for a starter for a 5 gallon batch, and I'll still have the SCOBY perpetually, every batch I make, it'll be perpetually pumping out more of itself, the mother. There are going to be kombucha purists who go in the comments, and I welcome it, who are going to say, you don't actually need the physical SCOBY, it's the juice, it is the kombucha, that is the starter. I get that, but I like the visuals of it. It gives me something to go, oh, I'm going to take care of you, because there is a nice little, I don't know if you can even see it in there without me spilling it. So it's this like, I don't even know how to describe it, a wafer, a jellyfish? Perhaps? I don't know. But the visualization of that, especially when I'm watching my batch ferment and seeing it grow, that's just a visual cue for me to go, yeah, it's doing pretty good. I think fermentation is a success. Let me get a temperature reading on where we're at right now for my tea, which the sugar has dissolved. It's sitting at 130. That's not terrible to go into the glass. I think it would become terrible if my glass was really cold and then I poured the hot, and that when it becomes detrimental. Somebody can comment and let me know. Let me safely pour this in there. And like I said, I'm just following the directions that I stole from somebody 5 or 7 years ago, put on Homebrew Happy Hour. Every time I brew, I just follow these exact ones as well. So you can go to the link below, or, you know, if I'm not following it, I am just doing it off memory because it is easy. Oh, I make sweet tea. I pour sweet tea into a jar. I get the sweet tea down to temperature. I put SCOBY in there. I cover it. I put it in a closet, or in my case, I'll put it in my office because that's the easiest room in my house to temperature control. And then 7 days later, I taste test it, and we're good to go. So let me pour this in there, which if you're following along on the instructions, that would be step number 6, or pardon me, step number 5. Beautiful. Put that there. Show y'all on the screen what we've got going now with our sweet tea. Nothing about kombucha, nothing out of the ordinary. Everyone can make sweet tea. It is dirt cheap, whatever the cost of 7 tea bags and a cup of sugar. I'm gonna put that there, because the next step is now going to be pouring in our cold water. This is call for 8 cups of cold water. I will say this, I'm using RO water. If you use your city supply, maybe just do a pH reading of it to make sure you're not gonna go too acidic. You don't want, I believe the acidity for the pH for the SCOBY needs to be around like 3 point something, 3.4. You don't want, most city supplies should be fine, but I use RO because I just like a blank slate. 2025, I might start using that Topo Chico mix that we have over at Keg Connection or Amazon or wherever you shop for minerals. I might start using that because my pop and I talked about using it for our batches of beer. So I might start using that for everything that I do. And I'm just gonna have Topo Chico Kombucha, Topo Chico Sparkling, Topo Chico everything. So let me measure out for my, oh, I didn't need all that in there. I got RO. I actually made RO ice cubes. Y'all can't see it on the screen, but in my freezer out here in the garage, I made a tray of RO ice cubes. So, okay, dump that in here, the ice cubes and all. And perfect. At the volume we want to be. Because I used that super handy dandy adhesive thermometer, it's going to tell us that, oh my gosh, Josh, you're already there. You're at 79. Or I always forget if it's the blue or the green. Either way, we're within range because we just need to be down to 86. Anywhere from 68 to 86. We're already there. I don't mind letting it, for me, there is no sweet spot. I've pitched as high as 86. I've pitched as low as 70 for a batch of kombucha, and I did not notice a difference, except that fermentation is going to take longer if your beverage, the colder it is, and the colder the environment it is fermenting in. So since we have made it to where we need to be, we are flying through this. We're barely 20 minutes into this to show you how easy a brew day is for kombucha. Taking my Fermentaholic SCOBY starter, which is a SCOBY at 12 ounces of its own starter, dump it in to finish it off. You'll see her floating around there. They call that the mother. And sometimes mother swims and sometimes mother floats, or sometimes mother sinks. It does not matter. I've been scared before because all my first ones would float like this, and then like by the 7th batch I did, it sank, and I was terrified that I did something wrong. Called my friend Lorena Evans, who was just on episode 413 at homebrewhappyhour.com, or watch it here and smash that like button and subscribe and everything else YouTubers are supposed to tell you to do. But I call her because I call her for everything, and she said, yeah, they sink. What are you worried about? Why are you calling me? It's Saturday. What are you doing? So this one's floating. We're at temperature. Everything looks good. That's where the cheesecloth comes in. Again, there's links below. You could use a handkerchief. If it's breathable, that's all that matters. But you can absolutely just use the cheesecloth. It's dirt cheap. Do that. Nick in the chat, can you explain how to make 5 gallons? I'm going to come back when this is done and do either another live stream, or I'll just do a video of how I take my starter batch to do it. But the gist is, you're just scaling up the sweet tea, and then so I do a 4-gallon batch of sweet tea so that would be timesing everything we did today by 4 cups of sugar, 28 bags of tea. I'm bad at math. And then, you know, it would be to bring in here for 16 cups of water initially, and then getting it up to volume through cold water, and then obviously the starter. But that's it, friends. You see I've got my nice Middle Eastern hat on him, as I call it every time I put it on here because my cheesecloth is too big. He's ready to go to the desert. We are ready to let this ferment. It is going to be good. I'm going to check it in 7 days. That's when, for me, the sweet spot of being able to taste test it is. If it's too sweet to your liking, put the cover back on, let it ferment for another few days, and then try it again. That's the beautiful thing about kombucha. You don't need a bubbler on it. Fermentation is pretty much instantaneous in the first 24 hours. You're not going to see activity in regards to bubbling or anything like that in here. You're just going to see the SCOBY grow. You may see it get even clearer. One thing that fermentation does for kombucha is makes tea super bright. I mean, it's going to be see-through, crystal clear. But 7 days, so what's today? Wednesday? next Wednesday, I'll check it with the taste test. If I like the taste, boom, the next following weekend is when I'll probably do the video on making a bigger batch. If I don't like it, I'll just cover it back up and put it back to the same thing, the same room office for letting it ferment even more. And then I'll pitch it then. But yeah, Nick, come back in a couple of weeks. If I don't do it live, that's when I'll probably publish it. But if I can muster it into my busy schedule, I will do another live brew day to show how we take a starter batch of kombucha to make a bigger batch. Because one of my goals too, I would love, my buddy Kevin, he was on a video feature talking about coffee at Homebrew Happy Hour. And I want to get him selling kombucha on draft. That's what I do when I have it in a little mini keg or a 5-gallon keg. In one of my fridges, I have the event faucet carbonated up like soda. So I mean like 35, 40 PSI, forced carbon, and serve it like that. It's a real good alternative to sodas. I'm not a big fan of soda anyway, never was, but it has that kind of pseudo soda-ish thanks to the carbonic acid. What's my dad's, what temp are you fermenting? I'm gonna keep my office at the same temp that our beer is fermenting at, so 70. So it's gonna be on the slower side of fermentation. It's kind of cold days here in Central Texas for the foreseeable future, so I bet my house is, we have the windows open, I bet my house is like 72. So it sits one way, half a dozen the other. I'm still, regardless, because it's gonna be 70 in my office, I'm gonna still taste test it in 1 week. But I won't be shocked if it's very sweet still because it's a little bit slower of a fermentation. But anyway, I appreciate you guys joining me for a record-breaking Brew Day live stream. This was, I mean, even at 24 minutes, that is 20 minutes longer than I thought it was gonna go. But again, let me know in the comments below if you're doing kombucha, if you're interested in doing other alternative fermentations, if you're participating in Dry January. Like I said, I haven't committed to it. You know, I'm dry curious, as you might call it. I'm on that spectrum of, I'm not drinking today yet. So day one of Dry January is probably a check mark. We'll put an asterisk there and maybe come back to it. I appreciate you guys joining me. If you have any other questions, hit me up, joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com. If you have kombucha specific questions, call them in to 325-305-6107. If I use your voicemail on a future episode of our podcast, you'll get yourself a gift card to kegconnection.com. That's my favorite thing to do, is give away Todd's money. So I appreciate it, guys. I hope you had a wonderful New Year's Eve. Have a wonderful new year, and we'll be back with a podcast episode later this week. Tomorrow, pardon me, we'll be back. We have a proper-ish episode for y'all tomorrow. So if you're not already subscribed, do that. Listen to it in your favorite podcast directory, whatever you want to do. You're an adult. Do whatever you want. But guys, we'll see you around later.